Hello and welcome to the crux of medtech. We go beyond the buzzwords, bringing you the insights from the innovators, investors, and leaders who are driving this life-saving space forward. Because I'm absolutely fascinated by the stories that people have to tell in medtech. As someone who works in this sector on a daily basis, I come across so many interesting people and so many interesting stories that I think the world deserves to know about. Welcome to the crux of medtech.
Hello, John, and welcome to the podcast.
Henry, it's great to see you, and thanks for having me on your pod.
No, it's really good to have you here again. We had some technical issues the last time, which means this is the second time recording. However, really excited to dive further into the background. So let's kick off. How did you get into the working world, John?
Well, I'm one of your countrymen. I'm a London native, Henry. I grew up in West London. And I went to a terrific high school in Kensington. It was just over the Shepherd's Bush Green, where I grew up with all my family in Shepherd's Bush, and hence the lifelong Queen's Park Rangers affliction, or loyalty, and those types of things. But I was lucky. I took some early computer science classes at that high school, and it got me really interested in that field. I was the first in my family to go to university, and did an undergraduate degree in computing science. And then after a couple of years as a software engineer, I was lucky enough to be awarded a UK Science and Engineering Research Council overseas studentship. So that's where they send, I think, 4 or 5 Brits to the US, and then 4 or 5 Yanks to the UK to do graduate study. And I did a master's degree in electrical engineering and computer science in Chicago. It was a beloved place to me because I had done a Greyhound bus trip of the perimeter of the United States over a 6-week period with a bunch of friends a couple of years earlier. And Chicago just really hit me, and I was so lucky to get lined up at the University of Illinois and do my studies there in electrical engineering and computer science. And so then after spending a little bit more time as a software engineer, database designer, these types of things, I went to business school. I met my future wife, Liz, in Chicago, and she was going down to Thunderbird, the American Graduate School of International Management down in Arizona. And so I decided to go along and did an MBA in international finance. And so following that really kind of changed my career trajectory from engineer into more of the business arena. And I went on to work for Allied Signal Aerospace, which became Honeywell Aerospace, and did about a decade in that, and just had an incredible time with that company. I loved it. It included a 4-year stint approximately in Tokyo and all across the Asia Pacific region, and covered the airline services aftermarket and jet engine repair and avionics and all these great things. So it was an incredible world-class operations kind of training for me. But then I also got a yearning really around the healthcare side. I feel like there's a real draw and a noble purpose in the areas that we work, Henry. And so I joined a couple of former Allied Signal colleagues at PerkinElmer, and I ran their optoelectronics business first. Pretty big business, multi-hundreds of millions, 5,000 employees, 28 sites all over the world, and then moved into the life science tools and diagnostics area as well. And so ended up with, over 2 billion of revenue, probably 3 or 4 billion in today's kind of terms. And I think we did business in over 40, had sites in over 40 countries, business in over 100. He had over 1,000 people in the field. Complex, great stuff, right? Instruments, reagents, diagnostics, medical devices,
sure,
components, all these types of things. So
what was
wow,
it
that was
pulling you towards the medical industry? So you said there was some purpose behind it. Was there a trigger point or an event that caused you to move towards it, or was it just a pull factor from the right role?
I love aerospace. I still to this day, and it's terrific, but super long cycles. And I kind of craved the even further personal touch, very kind of outside in, product based, customer, focused, person. And, the real, pull around, patient, side was really strong, and it continued in my kind of deep tech, need almost, right? I was always drawn to whether it's glass cockpits or jet engines or mass spectrometers or genetic disease screening platforms or complex digital X-ray detectors, right? The first in their of their kind. I was always drawn to that and what it meant for humans. And so, yeah, I found that pull pretty strong. And so, I really was happy to make that kind of move in to be more of a healthcare focused, professional at that juncture. I moved up then into, a corporate COO role, there running all these different sites, and, it was great stuff. But then I decided to take a little bit of a turn rather than do corporate. I did a couple of middle market, private equity CEO roles, which is a totally different ball game. Very, operational focused. So lent heavy on my Allied Signal and Honeywell backgrounds, for operational excellence and these types of things, and product improvement and quality improvement and all those super important things, and customer growth and things like that, which was terrific. But then something pivotal happened in that I first got exposed to Intuitive Surgical back in 2008, where the company I was running was a major supplier to them. And I felt like that company was just getting its mojo. I think under the hood, they kind of knew they had something. They had been through a rev or two of Da Vinci. They had gone from urology and into GYN and were starting to open up and keep that, and, keep their products and systems moving forward. And wow, it's a super execution machine. Technical, sales and marketing, training, you name it, the clinical squad. It was just really exciting to see what they were doing with robotics in the OR. And I drew parallels with that, with what I had seen in aerospace and these types of systems, and really what could happen. And it was like, wow, this is interesting. So that was my first exposure to surgical robotics. But it was, at the JP Morgan Healthcare Conference. I just came back from there, yesterday. It's this week, as we're recording, Henry. But that's where I met two incredible guys, the co-founders of, Virtual Incision, where they were pitching this idea of a mini robot. It's a little robot on the inside instead of a, big robot reaching in from the outside. So that idea absolutely grabbed me and it does to this day. And so, pretty soon after that, in that next year or so, once, they'd secured a Series A financing, I joined as CEO and employee number one of that company, and then spent 14 years developing the world's first miniaturized, soft tissue robotic system, called MIRA, of course. And was able to bring that through de novo authorization with the FDA. A mere 30,000 page application with 5 or 10,000 pages of follow-up questions and clinicals, and a huge journey. But what a phenomenal experience to now be at this point. I think mini robots are going to be really big over the next 10, 20 years here, when you think about different sites of care and the ASC and the community hospital, or in rural settings and OUS outside the United States. I think there's a place for this pretty unique platform. So I handed the reins over to Jim Alexi recently. So after 14 years, it was a great time to bring someone on board like Jim. He's got a great background, as you know, from Intuitive and multiple other CEO roles, of course. And so as now we expand the indication from colon resection, from colectomy into GYN surgeries, and then into general surgeries, Jim's like a perfect guy to do the commercialization effort there. So that's the story of this pretty crazy and delightful career I've had. I feel very lucky, and yeah, it's been a great journey so far.
So we're going to start dissecting some of that. So I'm going to go back to the first time you really started to come across Intuitive. What were the signs that Intuitive, back in 2004, what was it you were seeing there that was like the indication of, yeah, they've really got something there?
Yeah, it was 2008, and it was really, I had worked a lot with their supply chain organization and their operations organization, and then really their imaging organization. The guys who built the cameras, and that's the image chain was where we were working. But it was such a great setup. So everything around there, they professionalized quite quickly. I feel like it's meat eaters, small teams, execution focused, super talented. So whether it was the technical or the same kind of prowess they took to the operations, and then a very professional way to build the supply chain and all this. So there was all those elements around the team and how they ran, and how Lonnie and Gary and Dave, right, really built that whole thing. But then they were just improving the system so much. It was getting better and better. And so, and you could feel it that they were starting to get some traction as they were expanding. They were already deep in prostatectomy, of course. And then, there was some trials and tribulations on the GYN side and all this kind of stuff, and learnings to go through. But it was, you could tell they were fixing it. There was surgeon adoption. It was helping. And it's kind of been a spectacular journey to watch them to go through DV5 and on and on and on. So I've got the highest respect for that crew. So that gives you a little sense. It was product, and then all the other stuff behind the scenes of what they were building. I was so lucky. I worked with a lot of the great device companies around the world. It was all the endoscopy players, and it was the Karl Storz and the Pentax and the Fujinon and the Olympus and Stryker and all these types of folks, right? But this is just a different lens, something completely different. They were the pioneers in this, and yeah, look what they've done. It's been pretty awesome.
Back then, when you were working with the Fujis of the world, the Storzes and things, were they worried about Intuitive at that stage, or were they seeing it as something completely different?
Nope. No, they were working on the image chain. They were working on systems. Storz is a very capable company, of course, and rest in peace, Dr. Sybil Storz, just recently this year, and wonderful company. And wonderful instruments and imaging, Image One and all, these are gold standard type devices and things like that. But yeah, it was, the big robot was too complex. It was like really big. It was really expensive, all that kind of stuff. But, I think even the big guys, J&J and Medtronic, it wasn't until much later that they felt they had to have something in this arena. They thought it was lap forever, with the tremendously strong Covidian and of course Ethicon franchises, right? But I think everyone is a bit like that. So it's, it's changed the game.
I'm interrupting this episode to bring you a word from our sponsors, TTP. TTP is a leader in complex medical technology development with deep scientific and engineering expertise. They support ambitious medtech companies in solving high-risk, high-complexity challenges where there's no margin for error. Whether you're tackling uncharted technical territory or racing to bring a product to market, TTP provide clarity and direction. By de-risking innovation and ensuring seamless alignment with regulatory and manufacturing demands, TTP help you move forward with speed and confidence. To find out more, check out the show notes.
So take me back to that hotel room at JP Morgan. What did Shane and Dimitri show you there?
So first of all, these guys are like brothers to me in this endeavor, right? We've of course been elbow to elbow on this for a long time. Shane, I consider one of the world's top roboticists. He's an amazing guy from tiny little town, 2,000 people in Ravenna, Nebraska, right? Goes to MIT, does his, PhD at MIT, does Mars rover, all this stuff. And he comes back home, as humble as he is incisive, as an engineer, great mechanical engineer. So, he's got some chops. And then, Dimitri, very different guy, Russian guy, grows up in New York City, big time surgeon, luminary surgeon, great trainer of surgeons, and a beautiful technician, right, of his craft. And it was this combo on the team side, which was attractive, but they brought in what was called Alpha One, which is this big monster device, tell the truth, right? So big, right? If you could see, almost certainly wider than your head, and maybe almost as wide as your shoulders, Henry, right? And that device you had to assemble in vivo. So they had done some, animal labs with these things, but, you built the robot on the inside. It was too big. But then I was chatting with them. We were talking about, ways to really scale this thing down and miniaturize it. In fact, this whole thing has been super high-tech miniaturization journey. And, we went through then, how could we go about this? Everything was off the shelf. It was all within the university. I think there's 300 patents or patent applications on this thing now. I bet the early 50 or more were all part of the university with funding from NASA and DoD and all these types of things to build this program at the University of Nebraska Med Center. And so it was a spin out from the Med Center. But once this whole idea of the little in vivo robot, right, I thought was spectacular and could be a game changer for delivering, soft tissue robotics. And so we got together, we had an Alpha 2 design, which instead of being fully assembled in vivo, you could put one arm in at a time, and then in the other, and then you used, an external scope for the camera. But then we moved to Alpha 3, reducing each time we do an iteration. These things are about 30 or 40% smaller. And Alpha 3 was a pivotal one. It was our first in human device. It was the first one where we did a fully integrated camera. To this day, it's the world's first and only robotic flex tip scope, right? That sits with the mini robot, which is an important philosophy to have in robotics, is the image chain is so linked to controls. And when you think about AI and all these things down the road, how important that is, that's key. And then, we learned a lot, with Alpha 3. We went to Asuncion in Paraguay and did our first colectomy surgeries. We were always focused on, colon resection. We saw it as the marquee, procedure in soft tissue robotics, very complex, of course, but also well over, 50% or more at that time. And to this day is open procedure. And we wanted to bring in a minimally invasive, approach, to that as well. And so, we learned a ton, doing first in human. That's a critical step. It was the first system build. It's, with imaging, with robotics, full controls, all this stuff on humans, right? So that's a critical stage for any, med device company, coming through. We learned a lot. We had to make it again 40% smaller. We had to create a huge range of motion on our camera and change the field of view and improve the visualization greatly. And we had to improve our instruments, and we had to reduce the number of cables. Shane jokes around, I think we had 3 or 4 cables on the Alpha 3 robots, right? And he jokes around, it took him a year of his life to do the cable on the robot and another year of his life to do the cable on the camera, right? This is data and, you know, RF with electrocautery, and it has to be unassailable, perfect in all its senses. So it was this miniaturization journey, and then perfecting of all the different componentry. I think of it as dozens of medical devices within that one system. And everything is custom. Every gearhead, every piece of that device is a custom device, and we also built it all. We built a 1385 MDSAP, FDA facility in Lincoln to do all the final assembly and test of robots and cameras, instruments, consoles, and carts. And we were able to build up a critical part during this time was building up a world-class supply chain of incredible partners that we had around the world to help us do this. And folks like Maxon and folks like Fourth Dimension come to mind, and many others actually that helped us build this system. So, that's the kind of journey. We went from Alpha 3, then into Alpha 4, and the current MIRA device, the one where we went to FDA on with all of our clinicals, 30 colectomy cases in the United States, was Alpha 5. And now, we're still making it smaller. There's M2, which is basically half as small again for things like hernia and gallbladder removal, and GYN surgeries and the like. So that's been the evolution there. That's what our miniaturization journey, our technical journey, and our clinical journey was, Henry, in all this.
And why was colectomy the jumping in point, and why was that the initial indication you guys chased?
Yeah, few reasons. Number one, it'd be good to know that the mini robot can do the marquee procedure of soft tissue. Number two, there was a lot of open procedures, as I touched on earlier. So we felt like there's an MIS possibility, particularly in, remote centers, rural, different centers, which was important. And then there was a very practical thing, right? We had to stop at some point and you can't just keep going. We were going a long time, of course, but, so the, incision size, for colectomy, is standard of care is about a 5 centimeter excision size because you have to extract the specimen. So we knew we could make a robot small enough, about 3 centimeters, say, in diameter, that was well within the standard of care for the MIS incision size. So it was that kind of collision of clinical adeptness, open versus MIS, and then a practical, very practical one of saying we have to stop at some point, and okay, this is a good starting point. But beyond that, you got to be much smaller. You got to get towards, 2 centimeter incisions, 25 millimeter incisions, those types of things.
Very good. And to go back to the kind of the technical jumps that you made, you're talking about 30-40% jumps in miniaturization every time you kind of get to a model.
Yeah.
What was driving those jumps? Was it simply getting better R&D and learning more about the system? Is it better partners? Is it advances externally outside of virtual incision?
Yeah.
What was causing the miniaturization at each of those points?
Yeah, it's so interesting, kind of just looking back on it, because it's so myriad. The biggest driver of all this was someone like Dimitri demanding the clinical excellence of the device, right? There was no point building this if it was just going to be a ho-hum device. So there were strength requirements, reach requirements, visualization requirements, that really drove so much of the design perspective. And then there were regulatory things. So from the biocompatibility in materials, and then heat sinking and all the other requirements. And it was building, it was a gradual, and then quality robustness. All these elements, right, required really important design changes along the way. And you don't learn it all at once. And as a completely foundational technology, right? No one's done this before. And so we had to go through all of that. And again, I think the real anchor was the clinical drive and breaking stuff. Under the hood, we considered ourselves a company of makers, very much makers. So we would make tests, build, make tests, break. And we would always focus on the very toughest problem. So we knew, they were the ones that we were putting our most stress points on. And so, at MIT, the slogan there is mens y manos. It's mind and hands, right? So it was very much this approach to mechanical engineering and the software and the robustness and building, that drove us through this fundamental kind of journey. So yeah, it was all of that. So it just doesn't reveal itself in one go. So every element of the system is tuned constantly.
Excellent. And what were the key kind of steps in the journey where things just kind of stepped up in seriousness and things? Because, I mean, it's such a different approach and looking at the journey of what's going on. I speak to a lot of founders, lots of CEOs who say at any one point the wheels could have come off, but you see the event at the end of it. And I guess the event at the moment with Virtual Incision is getting to market, and now it's going on that next level of journey. But talk me through some of those key points where it got like, hey, we're kicking on here. This is stepping up. Wow, this is really gaining momentum.
A beautiful starting point around this that kept us going for all of this, first and foremost, was mission-based and this incredible idea of a little robot on the inside instead of a big one reaching in from the outside, right? So everyone we built in the company was hooked on that vision and purpose, right? Of making every operating room robot ready. We could put this anywhere, reducing the complexity. And so we had a consistent core driver for the whole company from the get-go. But, one of my jobs really was to break this down into digestible chunks, executable chunks. For engineering, for clinical, for regulatory, and very important was the financing chunks, right? These things are really difficult. I find that I've worked in, half a dozen different industries, and I think medical devices is the toughest, because, it's just not these technical and clinical and regulatory engineering challenges, which are massive and global and all this kind of stuff, right? But it's the financing of these things are very hard because, we were lucky. We always felt differentiated. We're differentiated to this day. So you better have a differentiation and be unique. I think it's a little bit of an issue. You're well versed in surgical robotics, but there's 30 Me Too Da Vinci players. It's like, no, Gary and Dave and the squad are going to win that one, and it's going to be really good, and you got to be new and unique. So we had this mission, we were differentiated, and then it was breaking it down into the steps. And so there's a couple of technical steps. There was 5 alphas I talked about, right? Alpha 1, Alpha 2, Alpha 3, Alpha 4, Alpha 5. And now we're going to M2, which is, the next gen again. So there's got to be that evolution, always improving. But the chunks for me were just sensible milestones. We went from that robot I saw in the hotel room at JPM and I said, well, that isn't going to work. We've got to have one device we can insert. So a natural next step was okay, how do we get this in the body and assemble it, put it in from the outside? So that was, Alpha 2, 2-arm robot. And then the next natural chunk was, no, we need a camera. This needs to be a fully integrated system. So it was system build, complete with visualization for the first time, plus a 30 or 40% smaller robot, plus the target there was first in man, right? Huge jump. So you're going from, look, this looks really good. This could work. Let's get to a good first in man place because we are going to learn a ton. You can't explain it until you've been in those situations. And this is a really critical point, right? Get to first in human as quick as you can with the right, MVP, minimum viable product, that you need for your whole system. And then let's see where you are. And then, successful, first in man, led us to, really important design step. So it was another hunker down for 18 months or 2 years, Henry, to make it again 30 or 40% smaller and build a camera that was going to be fit for use, and to build the strength and build the software capabilities and build the robustness and be able to pass FDA authorization. So once we got that Alpha 4 baseline, we said, okay, this is it. We learned some things. We did tons and tons of, preclinical testing. Tons. Like I say, we're makers, builders, testers, right? That's us. And so every piece we tested absolutely upfront as much as we can. And that was a critical part of our psyche. And then once we got a baseline of learning from Alpha 4, we said, this is it. This is Alpha 5. This is going to FDA. So then everything forward from that was design history filed and perfect, or in all its sense. So those were the building blocks. And I aligned our financing strategy, with those building blocks. And then I also try and keep it, to make sense. So, we're right now a Series D company at, Virtual Incision. But I like to keep seed separate, and then A is really where you're doing some early prototype stuff. B is where you're really kind of getting to your, system. C, I feel like, is going through your authorization process and maybe your first, key opinion leader, first access program, I feel like. And then your D round really takes you into, a broadening of your indications and your commercial footprint. So I think there's tying of, clinical, technical, regulatory milestones that I kind of talked about. Bucketize those, maybe in 18-month type periods. I feel like they're digestible financing chunks for a fast-moving startup. And then keep it sensible within your seed A, B, C, D kind of rounds, so the external environment knows where you are. So that means sometimes having an A1, an A2, an A3, or a B1 and a B2, and a C and a C2. But just keep it in the buckets. Keep it smart. Keep people understanding where you are. And then we were lucky. We had early financing that stuck with us for well over a decade, right? And then we just added, some terrific venture partners along the way to expand your syndicate and the like. But yeah, it's that kind of process of capital efficiency and lining things up. And so, yeah, it's threading the needle.
So yeah, I'd love to dive more into the financing and how that really looks, because 10 years is a long time horizon for a lot of investors. And you talked earlier about building in medtech, how difficult it is. It's really difficult. For part of it is to get a fund to go, well, 10 years still won't have an event potentially. So, so how do you convince people to go on that journey, but also stay there and continue to support over that time period?
Yeah, it's hard. So I think it starts with this compelling vision, right? And this idea. So, people could tell. People wanted to be part of it, and felt like it was a worthwhile endeavor, right? So I think you've got to build that kind of ecosystem. Now, I myself, getting into this, I thought this maybe is a 5 or a 7 year journey, right? On my first entrepreneurial journey. And here I am 14 years, right? So that being said, these are really difficult things. But, you know, the other thing is that we couldn't get a sniff from the coasts, be it, you know, Boston or be it, the Valley, right? Not a nickel came out of those areas. It was all Midwest money. So we had great support from Sioux Falls, South Dakota, right? And then as we built the syndicate, and that's the long time money, who had an LP base that we spent a lot of time with, and who felt like they were part of this great journey of a really cool spin out in the Midwest, University of Nebraska, and were part of this journey with us, right? And then actually every nickel, predominantly after that, we raised, in the Midwest. So further venture came from Chicago, came from, Ann Arbor, and even our European VC was from the Minnesota based, partner, right? Who built this whole thing up. So, it was a little bit of that, but it was really, really hard. And, I don't know if I'd still describe medtech financing environment as a nuclear winter. It's still pretty close. You're really close to it, right? It's tough. It's really, really tough. I think, I think there's growing money in private equity in healthcare, and there's more M&A and hopefully some more IPOs. We need all that to happen. But in venture land, I think it's protecting your favorite children a little bit and your portfolio, and then very select go forward investments. So it's very important to manage every dollar for all the entrepreneurs out there, and kind of have this mindset that I'm kind of eschewing here. So you can keep building and keep staying alive and keep making progress. You need to make continuous, fast, efficient progress along the way, and bring a great investor base along with you. So it takes a lot of energy and support and a great team, and then you have to hit all the milestones that I said, right? So yeah, so it's one of those. Nothing's easy.
So look, John, you were at JPM, as you kind of mentioned at the start of this, only this week. So nuclear winter, you probably have a better finger on the pulse of the market right now by spending some time there. What was the kind of resounding messages from there? Are we still kind of back end of nuclear winter? Are the grass seeds showing through? Where are we sitting as an industry?
Well, we've thought there were green shoots the last 3 or 4 years, right? We thought 25 was going to be a banner year, all of us at JPM, and then, geopolitical got tricky and all that stuff, right? The uncertainty came up. We feel like there's a better understanding in corporates. I think the corporates are healthier. We need the big guys to be super healthy. We need J&J cranking, Medtronic cranking, Stryker always cranks, Intuit always cranks, right? But we need everyone healthy and doing well. And so it's also good, in the robotics arena to have Hugo, make progress. At least, congrats to the J&J folks that, they just announced last week that Ottava has been submitted for their de novo. And so, all these things, will help and take some of the strain off. And, I think on the geo macro side, you're going to see, I think a lot of deals. There's even green shoots in bio. They've been murdered, right? Around the world. It's been very, very, very tough because of COVID. They went crazy, around this stuff. And so hard reset coming out. So I think you're going to see improved, environment for M&A and IPO, and then bio, a little bit of a lift. And I think all this goodness kind of feeds into device. Sectors like cardiac are doing great, whether it's PFA or structural heart and all this stuff, right? Big money going into there still. Robotics is interesting. I think there's a lot of great niches now everywhere. And, but there's also, a different landscape. The mainframe, there's going to be 3 or 4, the CMR guys with Hugo and Otava and of course DB5, banging away in the mainframe land. And then a lot of Me Too's, in China, Japan, Korea, all this kind of stuff, India. So that's going to be an interesting one to play out. So we'll see how that goes. So, I think it's still time for device folks, to keep their heads down, be sensible, look after every dollar, capital efficiency, whilst really being creative in making progress in your companies. And then good things, it'll start to happen, right? As new funds come together, as new investments start coming together, you'll be able to find some capital to support your companies. So I think it's green shoots with some potentially big deal year, which kind of changes the dynamic a little bit. Let's see, Henry. More writ large, I think 2026 in the US is expected to be gangbusters. I mean, they're talking about printing 5% GDP, even 6% GDP type stuff, right? So we'll see where that goes. But there's writ large US incredible kind of GDP powerhouse. Whereas in Europe, it's a very different situation. So you got to be sensible and look for great pockets of friendly or home region-based financing. But then I think the US can be helpful. And so I'm working with a handful of startups now. A couple of them are in the UK. I love that. I have an affinity to try and to pull up some of those companies, and kind of give them a lens into the US market and provide that kind of strategic and tactical and financing and regulatory kind of guardrails that, I've built up the scars on already ahead of it. But that gives you hopefully a little flavor, Henry, of the environment.
Another quick interruption to tell you about our sponsors, KUKA. KUKA is a global leader in robotics with over 25 years of experience partnering with medtech companies on their journey to market. Their reputation is built on robust technology, reliability, and long-term collaboration. More than a supplier, KUKA provides trusted support throughout the product lifecycle, from development to integration and beyond. For companies exploring robotic solutions, the KUKA LBR Med offers a ready-to-integrate, state-of-the-art option that meets the highest medical standards, without the need to build from scratch. If you want to find out more, then head to the show notes and follow the link to KUKA's website.
Fingers crossed. Everything crossed for this year. And we're the same with the UK companies. That's why we started the MedTech Club, to create an environment where UK businesses who are building in MedTech, can network, learn, grow, and hopefully go through the stages of building a medtech company whilst trying to avoid the mistakes that people have made in the past. So, that's one of the reasons why we built that.
I love that you do that, and it's great to see you start really your own company and get it going and build this community and ecosystem. And I feel aligned and I feel responsible to kind of help people pull forward. And I love this area. So we've walked, entrepreneurs like myself and now have walked in their shoes and bumped our heads many ways, and have real opinions that I think can help these companies make the right moves, and be able to bring their stuff to market, you know.
Indeed. We'd be remiss if we didn't talk about taking a robot to the International Space Station. So for people who don't know that story, why don't you start at the very top? Where did this idea come about? And then let's go from there.
Yeah, the ISS, it's great stuff. But frankly, it goes back a long way. Because I had mentioned earlier that Shane Farrater, the co-founder and CTO at Virtual Incision, is a former Mars rover guy, right? So he's had an affinity with NASA for a long time, and we'd gotten nice non-dilutive funding from NASA and from Army along the way, which is really pivotal. It's really important to look for those sources, right, for everyone out there, and do that from whether it's some strategic help or non-dilutive help in these different areas. Make sure you're looking at all of those sources. But it was that journey that kept the relationships in place for quite a long time with the NASA crew. And we had one of our early engineers who was doing a PhD program at the University of Nebraska in Lincoln. And we had started doing early remote surgery stuff, across town, to the East Campus of the University of Nebraska, which was really their life sciences campus and vet campus, to the Virtual Incision headquarters in Lincoln as well. But it was this notion of an engineer going back. She was doing her PhD. Shane and Rachel decided that, hey, maybe there's really something around remote surgery we could do. And the dream came around of, can we put one of these on the space station? And NASA was very much supportive of that. So, of course, it was the first surgical robot to go up in space. I think it's about $1 million for a pound of cargo on a Falcon 9 to go to the ISS, Henry. So ours cost a few $1 million to park on a Falcon 9, and we were able to fire it off as really what ended up being for us just a tremendous demonstration of what's possible with remote surgery and with mini robot surgery, because mini brings a whole different dimension to longer term the remote. It's the lower complexity, easy kind of setup, and yet very capable soft tissue robotics functionality that could do this. And so we thought this would be just a tremendous way to inspire surgeons, inspire the world of surgical robotics, and bring this. So, yeah, it was that program. It was Shane calling me up and saying, John, I think we can do this. It's going to cost us a little bit of money, but we've got nice grant that we can do this on with the university too. So we built a nice collaboration with NASA, and of course the SpaceX folks and stuff like this to get it going. And we put the program together, and then the culmination of that was that we had 6 surgeons, we call them the astro surgeons, of course, sitting in Lincoln, Nebraska, of all places, of course. And these are great KOLs and surgeons across the way. GYN, colon general surgery, HPB surgery, all the different specialties, right? And they were controlling the mini robot on the ISS a long way away over very tough pipes. These are DoD military space pipes, right? So they weren't as fast as we were seeing across town, but we were able to get all the surgeons to do these different tasks, all 6 of them. And yeah, it was just a flawless, demonstration. You know, we thought, how the heck are we going to pull this off? But we had, a NOC, or a network operations center, set up. We had 20 different screens in our training center at our headquarters, and all the engineering team, of course, watching, and all the surgeons and VIP guests and stuff, coming to watch this. And it was all managed. We went through this protocol. So it was helpful to have Shane's NASA experience with spacecraft. And, I think, Rachel also, had also done some internships, out west in Pasadena, at Caltech, you know, with the home rover and some of these things, or at least had some experience, on the team. Several of our team had been NASA interns, working on flight ops. So yeah, that was the culmination of bringing this thing together. And it was, yeah, MIRA in space. Launch day was amazing. So there was lots of, right? So the brilliant kickoff to this, I had never been to, a space launch, in a long time. I'd been to the site. Wait, remember that, Greyhound bus tour I was talking about, back in 1987? One of them was to go to Cape Canaveral. And, you know, I saw, this incredible area, but, you know, this time, last year or so, we were, a couple of years ago now, I was at the Space Center, at Kennedy Space Center, just across the lagoon from the SpaceX launch. It's the same pad that went the Apollo launches, right? Wow, you know, legendary spot. And I was with, Pete and Chris, like the CTO and sales leader at the time. And, Shane was up with the, NASA VIPs, in a building across from the site, of course. But, so this is even better because we're across the lagoon. Someone had brought us in, just sitting on the grass bank as close to the launch pad as you could get. And this rumble, every vibration in your body goes off when you're watching a Falcon 9, go up. We're watching this thing go up, and then even more dramatic was the booster coming down and landing just across the way from us, dropping out of the sky like a rock and then stopping. So that was the start of the thing. I'm going like, oh my God, this is one of the best experiences of my life. This is crazy, right? And then we docked. It was in the Cargo Dragon capsule on the F9. Docked with the ISS, all perfect. And then we had, several days of setup. We had astronaut O'Hara. She was the one who took the box out. She had to set it in a rack. It was in a standard ISS locker with a few simple switches and put that on. So, we had to go through all of these steps, how to unpack it, what the instructions were. We're talking to astronauts, the whole time about setting this thing up. And then, on game day, once we had set it up, it was so exciting. Everyone was pretty nervous. We were seeing round trip latency of about half a second, which is a lot. Humans, you really got to be below 200 milliseconds and certainly below 100 really. And what we'd done across country since is at, 40 milliseconds, completely imperceivable, to the human. And so, it was all the engineers, and it was just so exciting, where I knew all the different tasks, that each of the engineers, some had done, the exercise that we had built, like on the little board. Others were in charge of the autonomous mode switch. And so there's so many nice little, features. We had to shorten MIRA a little bit. MIRA is a specific length so it can reach down to the pelvis and reach everywhere you need in general surgery. But for these lockers, we had to cut her down a little bit. And so, from mechanical to the software, to the imaging, to the pegboard, basic exercises and to the instruments and making sure the scissors were nice, to the engraving, on the scissors blade or virtual incision and all this kind of stuff, and colors, and these types of things. It was so fun to have these little just side conversations when their work was shown up on or on the NASA screen and things like that. So it was amazing through that experience. And then another crazy thing, usually they just release the cargo into space, right? It never comes home. But a beautiful thing that Shane had arranged was that, no, we want the kit home. So we brought the kit home. Again, you know what happens, right? It's coming down, it's flying down. And this is no easy endeavor. Had amazing label on it that says special space contents. And so we were able to save the data, reconstruct it. And then it went on a roving museum tour from the International Surgical Society. Started in Chicago and has gone to other places, and they created this thing. And now it sits, I think, in the lobby of the Lincoln headquarters. So this whole thing had a journey, and it was CNN and Wolf Blitzer, and there's I think I was on CNN International, and it went out to 400 million homes worldwide. And so it was a crazy kind of thing, but it was this inspiring notion around surgical robotics in space, remote surgery, all the different indication specialists, right, represented. And so I think longer term, it's this notion of why remote surgery and what it can do, and bringing the specialists to here on Earth, right, to the remote rural centers in the United States or OUS, where you can imagine there's such a shortage. I think even in the US, Henry, there's 1/3 of all counties in the US have only access to one surgeon. It's kind of bonkers to think about. But yeah, that's kind of a little bit the story that we went through.
Well, look, thank you so much for sharing. I think that's such an interesting story and such a fascinating, differentiated part of the virtual incision journey. So I think we could riff back and forth on telesurgery as we did in version 1 of this all day. But let's bring the conversation round to a final closing comment. So do you have any advice for medtech entrepreneurs which you've learned across your journey that I guess you wish you learned when you were younger?
Yeah. We covered a lot of these kind of salient bits along the way here, Henry. So thanks for doing a nice job of pricing some of these things out. But when I work with CEOs or boards, I try to always take the perspective of what would I do if I was in their shoes, right? And I feel like there's two different areas to talk about. And my first point of advice is to really, really listen to people who've been through the journey before. Don't make assumptions about getting a CPT code or a regulatory clearance, or how to structure a clinical study, or how to do an engineering program, or how to structure your financing, or ask people who've been through it. So the first area I tend to work with, talk to CEOs, thinking about if I was in their shoes, is all the stuff around tactical and strategic and financial, right? We covered that, I think, in quite good ways. And it doesn't matter whether you're in cardiac or whether you're doing a wearable, right? Or across the board. Just seek it out. These are very, very tough moving environments. When I think about the FDA, just think about how the goalposts have shifted there, right? Da Vinci was a broad abdominal indication clearance with a 510K, right? Ours are de novos, indication by indication, with clinical studies at every turn, and another 510K filing for every single new indication. how you pass this and go about this and expedite this as best you can and do it capital efficiently is really important to learn. So it's just, those things, the playing field is very complex in device and bio and these different areas. So I think reach out, make sure you get aligned with someone who's gone through that. And then the other area I very much talk about to CEOs about is being the CEO and the loneliness of that role, and the stress of that role, and how to maintain perspective, how to think things through, how to break things down, how to interpret the advice of folks, how to decide on plans, how to persist. Grit's a little bit overused, but this is the grittiest of endeavors. You're doing phenomenal work. This is why we love this industry, right? It's incredible. It's incredible. Tech and clinical coming together, right? Particularly right now in the AI sense. I mean, we did so much on the AI side, from remote to autonomous to, edge compute and all these types of things. So it's a brilliant time to be doing this stuff. So the personal side though, is really, really important. So I try to just, be able to steward, a CEO and, their team through these types of things, and make sure they're covering not just the tech, but the quality and the ops and the clinical and the financing strategies and all these types of things, regulatory depth, and make sure how to make money, how to have a clear differentiated value prop from the get-go. Don't talk about the next 5 indications. Your first indication has to be a go-getter, right? As best it can be. So these types of things are so pivotal, I think, to the community. So I'm glad you've got a venue now to help us, bring, some support and advice and encouragement, for the great work, in this industry.
Well, John, thank you so much for joining me today for the second time. It's been a pleasure to record with you.
Cheers, Henry, and good luck with your company in 2026. I think it's going to be a good one.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much for joining me on the Crux of MedTech podcast. If you're not already doing so, please go ahead and subscribe on YouTube or follow the podcast on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. This podcast is proudly brought to you by Crux. Crux is a medtech search firm which places pioneers in transformative roles to help us live longer, healthier lives. We do 3 things for companies. We help hire world-class executive talent. We help companies raise investment from Series A to Series C and execute upon M&A. And we also are building a community of medtech leaders to facilitate peer-to-peer learning and accelerate the companies to help them go faster. If you're interested in any of those 3 things, please reach out to me on LinkedIn or follow the link in the show notes to find out more. Thank you.